Name's Hank Murdoch. And hauling reefer freight up. You pick up enough road miles, you start thinking you've seen it all. Blown tires at 60, brake fade in the Rockies, slick roads in Wisconsin winters, and every weird twitch dispatch can throw at you. I don't spook easy, and I don't chase ghosts. But I'll tell you right now, experience don't mean squat when the road itself lies to you. This run was standard. Left Joliet around 3:45 in the morning, loaded with frozen meat, bound for a cold storage spot just south of Memphis. Company had me on a solo schedule, tight but doable. Clean Kenworth, tires checked, tank topped, coffee in the cup holder. I wasn't trying to break records, just beat the morning Chicago snarl and make good time through central Illinois before the sun got high. Fog was thick that morning. Not rare for this stretch of I-55, especially near the river cuts and low fields. I've driven through worse, but this stuff clung to the road like insulation. Couldn't see past 100 feet. About 15 miles south of Lincoln, I'm easing along in the right lane. Cruise off, eyes working hard. CB's quiet, and there's not much traffic. Just me and a few other rigs creeping through the white soup. That's when I see it. Flashing arrow board on a trailer off the right shoulder. Big lit-up panel with an arrow pointing to the ramp ahead. Flashing urgent-like. Looked official. Looked temporary, like maybe DOT was detouring I-55 southbound. I didn't hear nothing on the radio, but that's not too rare either. Sometimes they don't announce these things, or the chatter stays local. I slowed up, checked my mirrors. Another rig a quarter mile behind, doing same speed as me. I signal, take the off-ramp real easy, thinking maybe they got road work ahead or some accident. The sign looked new, reflective, and those boards aren't cheap. I figured if someone set that up, it had to be for a reason. The moment I'm fully committed onto the ramp, I feel it in my gut. Something's off. First is too narrow. No merge lane, no cones, no follow-up signage. Then the pavement starts to crumble at the edges, like this stretch hasn't been touched in years. I roll slow, about 15 miles an hour, trying to make sense of it. Trees start closing in. The ramp curves, but there's no re-entry to the interstate. Just a fading strip of asphalt heading into the fog. About 100 yards in, it ends. Just like that. Dead stop. No exit, no shoulder, no turnaround. A crumbling barricade ahead, old and faded. Behind me, I hear Jake brakes. Another rig just followed me in. I slam the brakes and hit the flashers. Step out into the cold fog, boots crunching gravel. That second rig pulls up close. Driver gets out, looks spooked. Young guy, maybe late 20s. "You stuck too?" he asks, breath showing in the air. "It looks like it," I say. "Where the hell are we?" He shrugs, saw the arrow, figured it was a detour, didn't even think twice. Same. I walk past the barricade and look beyond it. Nothing but overgrown weeds and a muddy slope leading into what looks like an abandoned industrial pad. This ain't no active ramp. It's some decommissioned exit they never tore down properly. I pull out my phone. No signal. Just a spinny wheel. CB crackles faintly with static. Guy behind me starts pacing. Then we hear it. Another truck. Different sound, maybe a freightliner. Headlights cut through the fog. Third rig pulls in, followed the same damn arrow. Within 10 minutes, 3 more rigs pull in behind that. 6 of us total. All stuck in a line, nose to tail, nowhere to turn around. Each one of them saw that same flash and board and assumed it was official. None of us questioned it. None of us thought it might be fake. I lean against my cab, arms crossed, thinking. It's not just the fog or the dead ramp. It's that arrow board. It wasn't chained down. No cones, no backup signs, no troopers, no DOT truck nearby. Just a board sitting by itself in the dark. I light a smoke and stare down the line of trapped trucks. CB finally clears up a little. Voice comes through. Somebody 3 trucks back. "You guys see the board flicker? Thought I saw it cut out for a second." "Didn't notice," I say.
but nothing about this adds up. That ain't no official detour. No DOT markings on the trailer. Just a battery box and a generator. I start thinking hard. Why would someone drag an aeroboard out here, set it up just right to pull trucks off the highway, unless they wanted us here? Ain't much value in 6 random loads, unless it ain't random, unless somebody knew what was in those trailers. One of the other drivers walks over, big guy, older than me, wearing a Cargill cap and heavy coat. He squints through the fog. "You smell that?" he asks. I take a whiff. Diesel and cold mud. Nothing unusual. "Nah," I say. "Why?" "I think someone was out here recently. Ground's torn up. Fresh tracks behind those trees." He's right. I walk back toward the tree line, shine my flashlight. Mud's disturbed. Big tire treads. Not ours. Looks like a pickup or a flatbed's been in and out. I follow them a few feet before they vanish into the underbrush. I turn around and look at the other trucks again. 6 rigs, trapped in fog, with expensive cargo and no good way out. Whatever this is, it wasn't an accident. Someone built a trap, and we drove right into it. You ever take a turn because the sign told you to, even when your gut said it felt wrong? Drop your story in the comments. I grabbed my flashlight and started walking up the line of trucks, boots crunching over broken pavement. The fog hadn't let up one bit, just hung there like a wall. I could see maybe 2 trucks ahead, then nothing but haze. The ramp was narrow as hell, 2 rigs wide at best, but no shoulder, no grass, no gravel to cheat a turn. Just old concrete with weeds sprouting through the cracks and a rusted guardrail on one side that snapped if a trailer leaned too hard on it. Felt like we were in a concrete chute. Backing out wasn't going to be easy, not with 6 of us stacked in. I stopped by the first guy behind me, the younger driver that rolled in right after me. White Volvo, no decals, no company logos, just a rental plate and a fresh-looking DOT sticker. He was standing out by his hood, arms folded, looking back the way we came in. "You figure this is abandoned?" he asked. I nodded. Ain't no state ramp in working order ends like that. No lights, no markings, no merge lane. It's shut down. Probably been years. He rubbed his neck. "I'm hauling refrigerated pharma. Can't afford to sit too long or that box starts sending alarms." "You got backup power?" "Yeah, for a few hours, but I can't explain a detour with no records to the shipper. They'll think I went off route." "Yeah, join the club," I said, then moved on. Each driver had the same look, confused, twitchy, trying to size up the situation without showing it. One guy was driving a Penske lease with Indiana plates. Another had a flatbed with a load under a tarp. Old school guy, rough beard, eyes like ice chips. Didn't say much when I asked what he was hauling. Just said, "Doesn't matter. Nobody's getting out of here easy." CB started chirping again, bits and pieces coming through. "Does anybody got signal?" "DOT line dead, no bars." I tried my phone again, still no service. That wasn't normal. We weren't that far from the main line. I've run this stretch 100 times, always had coverage. Even out past Effingham, you can usually grab 1 bar if you lean out the window. I climbed up the side embankment, just enough to get above the fog. From there, I could barely make out the main lanes of I-55 maybe 200 yards to the east. Headlights moved past like ghosts, flowing smooth. Traffic was still running. That meant the highway wasn't closed at all. That aeroboard had lied. Then came the scrape. Not loud, but sharp, metal dragging. Everyone's heads turned. It came from the far end of the ramp near the barricade where I'd walked earlier. Somebody took off running with a flashlight. I followed. We got there just in time to catch a shadow disappearing to the trees. Couldn't make out much. Dark clothes, medium build, fast. Too fast to be another trucker. One guy chased a few steps, then gave up. "You see that?" he said, breathing heavy. "Yeah, he wasn't here by accident." Behind the barricade, we found fresh footprints in the mud, boot tracks, deep ones, the kind you don't leave unless you're carrying weight, like gear or tools or something heavier. I crouched near the tracks and saw where the mud was pushed in straight lines. Looked like someone dragged a dolly or cart back there. We followed it a little further until it got too dark to see. The trees closed in tight and the ground turned soft. Not a good place to chase anyone. I turned back. We started pulling theories out loud. Maybe they were trying to get us to leave our rigs and investigate. Maybe the trucks were the real target. Parked like this, we were sitting ducks. No maneuverability, nowhere to run, no eyes on the main road. If someone came in quick, like with a couple pickups, they could sweep the line, crack a trailer or two, then disappear before we called for help. Someone on the CB chimed in. "My reefer alarm just went off, low power." Another said, "Same here, battery's draining fast." That didn't make sense. Most reefers last at least 8-10 hours on a full charge, sometimes more, unless they've been tampered with. We checked cords and power units. Everything looked clean, but doubts were creeping in. Some of us started locking doors. One guy pulled a crowbar from under his bunk and kept it in hand. I asked if anyone had a dash cam with rear-facing footage. One guy said his was looped, but maybe it caught something. He started digging through the app on his phone. No signal to upload, but the footage was still stored locally. He showed me a short clip, the last few seconds before he took the ramp. Foggy shot, hard to make out, but clear enough to see a pickup truck parked on the opposite shoulder, maybe 100 feet past the aero board. No flashers, no cones, just sitting there, dark, engine running. No DOT markings, nothing. He'd assumed it was a road crew truck waiting on something. But the longer I watched that clip, the worse it felt. The truck didn't budge even as 6 semis passed it and exited. That ain't how DOT crews work. They flag, they move, they radio. This thing was just watching. I stood there in the cold, engine ticking behind me, thinking about everything I had seen. Aero board, dead ramp, no signals, muddy tracks, silent trucks. This wasn't some mistake. Somebody built this moment, and we all walked into it blind. We weren't stuck. We were pinned.
I started walking that dead-end ramp again. Slower this time, flashlight low to the ground. The others stayed near their trucks, most of them still half in denial or too cold and tired to do more than wait. Me? I needed to see what we were really sitting on. Something about that spot, the way it ended, the busted-up pavement and silence around it. It didn't sit right. I've parked in construction zones, layover lots, abandoned way stations, you name it. This wasn't any of those. This place felt like it had been forgotten for a reason. I stepped past the barricade again, crouched by the mud, and followed those tracks deeper. The dolly marks curved off toward the trees, same ones we spotted earlier. I didn't want to go full-on into the woods in that fog, not without a gun and a better light. But I went far enough to see something new. Tarp. Big chunk of it. Black plastic, partly buried in leaves. I peeled it back and found an old steel sign underneath. Cracked, faded orange, with road closed, state maintenance. Not one of the reflective ones, just flat steel. Probably from years ago. Someone had dragged it out here, then tossed it aside. Probably so we wouldn't see it and start asking questions. On the way back, I circled the aero board. It wasn't staked or locked in place, just sitting there on flat tires, like it had been dropped off quick. The generator on it wasn't even chained. Nothing about it was standard. I've seen plenty of those setups over the years. DOT doesn't run anything unsecured, especially not near interstates. They use flares, cones, reflective tape. They call in state patrol to monitor detours. This thing? Bare minimum to look real from a distance. And in heavy fog, it was just convincing enough. I kept thinking about that pickup we saw in the dashcam footage, the one parked past the ramp. It wasn't there now. Hadn't been since we started moving around. That meant someone was still close or had circled back around the long way. Maybe they were watching from the woods.
Maybe they didn't expect all of us to stay in our cabs and stay alert. By the time I made it back to my truck, one of the other guys, Vic, the one in camo, had popped open his side box and pulled out a radio scanner. Old school handheld unit, not CB, not cell phone, ran on its own frequency set. He was tuning it slowly, ears perked. I climbed up beside him on the step. "You picking anything up?" "Just chatter," he said, mostly static. But I caught something weird on a low band. Sounded like coordinates. Then it cut. Coordinates? Not full GPS, like grid stuff. Could have been nothing, but I heard intersection and mile marker, then some numbers, and then silence. "Do you think someone's running this like a job?" "I think someone's talking to somebody, and it ain't us." We sat there quiet for a bit. Fog started to lift a little, just enough to see beyond the first few trucks. Still no lights out on the highway. Still no sign of help.
Nobody was moving. Phones still dead, CB barely working. Then a white pickup pulled up slow from the far end, past the barricade. Just appeared like a ghost, headlights low. No markings on the door, just a rack in the bed and some tools bouncing around. It stopped 30 feet out, motor idling. Driver didn't get out. I grabbed the flashlight and started walking toward it, but Vic called out, "Hold up!" The driver finally opened the door, stepped out. Guy looked late 30s, hard face, beard stubble, safety vest over a hoodie, no clipboard, no badge, no name tag, just stood there squinting like he was sizing me up. "Y'all all right?" he asked. I stopped 10 feet from him. "You with DOT?" "Nah," he said, quick, like he'd already practiced the answer. "Contractor. Been checking erosion damage from the last storm. You boys lost or something?" We followed a detour. He glanced at the aero board, then back at me. "That board ain't ours." "No shit." He gave a weak laugh, didn't move. Just stood there with his hands in his vest pockets, like he wasn't surprised to see 6 trucks stacked up. No concern, no urgency, and that told me more than anything. "You know what this ramp is?" I asked. He shrugged. Old access ramp. Was closed years back. Was supposed to be demolished, but funding fell through. Locals dump trash here sometimes. Cops don't come through much. "You see anybody else out here this morning?" He looked around, slow like a movie scene. "Nah, quiet out here." "You sure?" He didn't answer. I took a step closer. "You see a pickup parked by that board earlier?" Still nothing. Vic stepped up beside me now, arms crossed. I heard a few other guys getting out of their cabs, watching. The contractor guy saw it too. His eyes flicked past us toward the line of rigs. That's when he took a step back and said, "Y'all ought to try backing out while it's still quiet. Just saying." Then he got in the truck and rolled back slow, tires crunching gravel, turned wide and vanished back into the fog toward some old dirt service road. Nobody said anything for a long minute. I turned to Vic. "Think he's part of it?" "Think he knows who is." I walked back to my cab, climbed up and shut the door. I sat there a second, looking out across the ramp, just barely starting to see daylight creep through the haze. I fired up the engine. Didn't feel safe, didn't feel done, but one thing was clear now. This wasn't a detour. Somebody moved the road. I climbed up the side of the ramp again, higher this time, just enough to see over the treetops. Fog was finally starting to thin out, not much, but enough to spot the headlights rolling steady on I-55, maybe 200 yards away. You could see the real southbound lanes moving like nothing happened. That's what hit me hardest. We weren't even far from the highway, just cut off from it, like we'd been peeled off and dumped in a pocket of nothing, left to figure it out on our own. Back in the cab, I tried my phone again. Still no bars, just a little spinning icon where signal should be. I restarted it twice. Nothing. Checked the truck's built-in GPS, showed us floating off the road like we were parked in a field. No map data, no road info, just gray background and a blinking dot. CB was no better, still fuzzy, like something was jamming us. Might have been the trees, the fog, or maybe something more deliberate. Vic came over, leaned on my steps again. "You get anything?"
Dead, I said. No signal, no data, not even location. GPS is blind. Same here. It's like this place don't exist. He looked around, chewing the inside of his cheek like he was working something out in his head. Then he nodded toward the end of the ramp. You ever wonder why they didn't just tear this place up? You know what it costs to keep an old ramp on paper? Not much. You know what it costs to hide one? Even less. I just stared at him. We ain't the first ones here, Hank. Another voice cracked over the CB, broken and fuzzy. I turned it up, leaned in. Anybody hear me? Got turned off 55. No way out. Need assistance. Then silence. Dead channel again. We all heard it. I looked back through my mirrors and saw a few other drivers standing outside their rigs now, looking around. One of them raised his arms like, "What the hell was that?" Vic said, "That guy ain't one of us." "No," I said, "but he found the same arrow." "He ain't getting out either." That was the worst part. Someone else had just gotten pulled into the same trap. Probably no idea what's waiting at the end. We were just lucky we had each other. What if it was one truck alone out here, in the dark, with no warning and no backup? I couldn't sit still anymore. I climbed down and walked toward the back end of the truck line. One of the other drivers, short guy, glasses, name patch said Ed, was messing with his reefer panel. "Something wrong?" I asked. He looked up, red in the face. "Reefer's reading half power. Was at 80% when I left Joliet. I ain't been running it long enough to drain." "You checked the gen?" "Yeah, checked the leads, checked the tank. It's all good. It's just going down." I glanced over his shoulder. "Same model unit as mine. Thermo King SB330. Solid piece of gear. Doesn't drop that fast unless something's wrong. You'll lock your fuel tank?" He blinked. "Always." "Still got the cap key on you?" He pulled it out of his jacket and motioned to his tank. He unlocked it, twisted the cap, and sniffed. "Smell that?" I asked. He nodded, face turning. "Not diesel. Not even close," he said. "What the hell?" "Somebody drained and cut it. Replaced it with garbage. Maybe water, maybe waste fuel. Whatever it was eating the battery and stalling the gen. Check your seal lines. Make sure they didn't spike it anywhere." He went pale and started crawling under the trailer. I walked up the line. More drivers checking their units now. 3 reefers showing low power.
2 flatbeds with chains freshly unhooked and slung wrong. One guy said his padlock was cut and replaced. Same brand, same type, but not his. No way to prove it without bolt cutters, but we all saw it. Someone had been in and out of this ramp before we even knew we were stuck. A shadow moved across the far trees, fast, low to the ground, like someone crouched and running. I pulled out the flashlight again and scanned the woods. Nothing but leaves and brush. I stayed there a minute, watching. I started talking low into the CB, not expecting anything. "If you're still out there," I said, "you know we see you." Silence. Then a soft click. Not static, a keyed mic. Someone was listening, didn't speak, just wanted us to know they were on the same frequency. Vic came back with the scanner, scrolling bands, picked up a short burst of something, sounded like digital noise, encrypted maybe. Then a voice, broken up and quick. "North side, recon, not ready, still watching." Then it cut out again. "That ain't a prank," Vic said. "No," I told him. "That's coordination." He nodded. "So what now?" "We wait or we move. Either way, we can't sit here and play dumb." We called a meet, 6 of us in a circle between the trucks. Laid it all out. Low fuel, cut locks, weird signals, mystery pickup. I told him about the road sign I found buried. Vic shared what he caught on the scanner. That's when the flatbed guy, the one who hadn't talked much, finally stepped up. "I'm hauling prototype stuff," he said. "Not marked, not logged. You wouldn't know unless you opened the tarp, but it's worth more than most freight on this stretch, and I didn't tell nobody my route." "Who gave it to you?" I asked. He hesitated. Broker out of Fort Wayne, but I never met him. Was all digital, paid in advance. Seemed off, but the money cleared. Another guy said, mine too. Cold load, pharma. Same broker? The flatbed guy nodded. That's when it clicked. This wasn't random. Somebody knew exactly what we were hauling, and they wanted time and space to work. We weren't on a road. We were in a kill zone for freight. No cops, no cameras, no GPS. Just fog, silence, and a ramp nobody would report missing. And whoever set this up, they were still out there, watching, waiting, listening. The road was dead, the channel was dead, but the threat was wide awake. I couldn't stop thinking about that voice on the scanner, still watching. It played over and over in my head like a bad CB loop. Wasn't just some random vandal or tweaker crew. We were dealing with something sharper, organized, patient. And they knew freight, not just trucks, loads. Knew which ones were worth the trouble and which ones weren't. Which brokers used lazy paperwork. Which routes had weak coverage. That's what shook me more than anything. This whole setup, it wasn't loud or flashy. No masks, no guns, just a quiet, dead ramp and a fake aero board in a fog that came on cue.
We all stood around the front end of the line, 6 rigs boxed in tight. Nobody was panicking, but tension was building. People were thinking too loud. You could see it in their faces, calculating, weighing, looking down at fuel levels, watching the light shift in the fog like it meant something. We were chewing time, and time meant battery drain, cargo temps rising, dispatches wondering what the hell we were doing off route. Vic started organizing. We need to figure out why we're here, who they wanted, and what they were after. Pretty sure it ain't me, said the guy with the day cab. I'm running empty. Another guy raised his hand like we were in a classroom. Light tools in my trailer, nothing resale, low value. We went around like that. 5 of the 6 loads either basic or unmarked. The 6th, that was the flatbed guy with the quiet eyes. He hadn't said much before, hadn't even told us his name. Now he stood with his arms folded like he'd been waiting for this moment. He said, "My name's Dean. I'm hauling fiber optic amplifiers for a military subcontractor. It's not classified, but it ain't exactly listed either. Straight broker job, Fort Wayne, high payout, 0 questions." Everyone looked at him. Vic asked, "They temper with your rig?" Someone rolled the tarp back. Didn't break the straps, just peeled it back and snapped it shut again. Not enough to trigger the alarms, but I checked the bungee pattern. It's not how I tied it. "So they wanted a peek," I said. Dean nodded. "And they got it. Which means they know what you're hauling." He didn't answer, just stared into the fog. That's when I noticed the silence. Like thick, unnatural quiet. No wind, no bird noise, no CB fuzz. Just the kind of dead still that makes your spine itch. I turned slowly, scanned the tree line. A trucker's instinct is tuned different. We notice the wrong kind of stillness. The kind that shows up before something happens. Then a soft, metallic clunk echoed from somewhere near the back of the ramp. We all turned at once. Someone whispered, "What was that?" Vic pointed. "Lights, behind that 3rd trailer." I squinted, and yeah, there it was. 2 small beams, barely cutting the fog, low to the ground. Probably headlights from a 4-wheeler, maybe a side-by-side or an off-road rig. Too high to be a pickup, too low to be a flashlight. The light stayed still, then shut off. We stood frozen for a second. Vic broke the silence. "They're testing us, seeing if we'll run. They know we're boxed in." Dean said, "If they get close to that tarp again, it's gone. They could strip it in 2 minutes and be gone with the crates. Then we don't let that happen." We made a plan, quick and dirty. No heroes, no weapons, just defense. Rotate watches.
One guy at the front, one at the back, rotate every half hour. We'd use walkie-talkies, short range, but they worked, and they weren't dependent on towers. We didn't move the trucks yet. Too risky.
Road was too narrow, and visibility was garbage. One wrong move and we'd be jackknifed in the middle of nowhere. First rotation was me and Ed, the nervous guy with the glasses. He took rear watch. I stood up near the fake aero board. We kept our lights low, didn't move much. Let the fog do most of the hiding. Every now and then I'd scan the edge of the woods, slow sweep, side to side. Didn't see movement, but I felt it, like being watched through a rifle scope. That kind of pressure. Ed crackled through on the walkie, voice shaky. Something just moved past the last trailer. Couldn't see it clear. I whispered back, stay still, don't chase, just watch. 10 minutes later he said, gone now, whatever it was. I stayed up at the front until my shift ended, then swapped with Dean. He didn't say much, just nodded and took the flashlight from me. There was a calmness in the way he moved, like he'd been through this before. Vic was sitting on his steps, arms crossed. This ain't random, he said. Nope. They scout these runs, watch brokers, find ones you don't ask questions, pick solo drivers or unmarked cargo, pull them out of the herd. I nodded. Pick them off without a trace. What do you think they'd do if one of us ran? They'd wait, follow, cut them off somewhere quieter. Here they can't do it clean with all of us awake. So we sit. For now. It went like that for another hour. Fog lifted a little more. Just enough light for outlines. I started seeing the edges of the woods, the worn gravel near the ramp's start, the full curve of the barricade. That's when I noticed the tire marks again. They weren't all from us. They were older ones. Different tread, thinner wheels, tighter turns. Not recent, but not old either. Couple weeks maybe. Same track pattern. Same in and out route. Vic was standing behind me, looking down. They've done this before. Yeah. How many trucks you think they've hit? Enough that they're good at it now. I kicked a rock. We ain't cargo. Not yet. And then Dean said something I didn't expect. We need to move, soon, he said. You got a plan, I asked? He looked at the end of the ramp. I think I do, but it's gonna cost one of us. Dean stood in front of us, calm like a man who already made peace with a bad deal. He said, we need to move now while it's still quiet, but we can't all back out at once. There's not enough room for that kind of ballet. So one truck needs to break rank and stay behind, give us space, buy us time. I knew what he meant before he said it. Someone was going to have to leave their trailer, drop it cold, unhook, and pull out solo, so the rest could use that length to start easing back one by one. And since my rig was first in line, blocking everybody else in, it wasn't hard to guess who he was looking at. I didn't answer right away, just looked down at the fog curling around the tires, then back at my truck. Reefer load, frozen meat. Not high value, but not cheap either.
Dispatch wasn't going to take kindly to this story. Insurance sure as hell wouldn't believe it, but looking at those faces around me, I saw it for what it was. No one else had the angle I had. No one else could move unless I did. I looked back at Dean. If I do it, we do this fast. No arguing, no second guessing. He said, fast. I climbed up, killed the reefer, threw the override, then dropped the landing gear. Trailer hissed as I unhooked. I didn't even look at it long. Just backed the tractor off slow, turned tight, and used the shallow turnout by the busted barricade to swing back into the ramp. Gave them enough space to start their dance. Vic took point, guiding the next truck with a flashlight. Walking backward, slow hand gestures. The rest of them stayed sharp, no yelling, just signals in motion. Ed nearly kissed the rail back in his trailer around, but he got it clear. The flatbed was the hardest. It needed more arc, and that ramp didn't forgive. Took 2 tries, but Dean handled it like he'd done it on ice. Then it was my turn to spot the rear, make sure nobody snuck up. That's when I saw movement again. Not close, maybe halfway up the embankment, near the trees. Shadow pacing. Watching. This time, they weren't hiding, like they wanted us to see. I clicked my flashlight once. They stepped back. Not far, just enough to fade into the tree line. Dean rolled past me in his cab, window down. "You good?" he asked. "For now," I said, "but something's waiting." He nodded, like he already knew that. Then he disappeared up the ramp, slow crawl behind the others. I gave them 10 minutes head start. Then I eased my tractor forward alone. No trailer behind me, no weight on the fifth wheel. It felt wrong, like walking out your front door in socks. Engine sounded louder, hollower. I got to the barricade, paused, looked back once at my trailer, still sitting there, still cold, still intact. Then I saw lights again. Not truck lights, headlamps. 2 of them, climbing over the embankment, small, tight beams, coming down toward the trailer. I didn't wait. I dropped it into gear and rolled hard up the ramp, caught up with the others by the time they were pulling onto the shoulder of I-55. We'd made it. No wrecks, no damage, no missing rigs, except mine. 6 trucks back on the highway, 1 trailer short. We parked in a tight row on the shoulder, flashers on. First signal bar hit my phone as soon as we cleared the trees. Felt like getting oxygen back. Everybody started calling dispatch, brokers, trying to explain why we'd been off-grid for 3 hours. Dean didn't say much, just leaned against his door, arms folded, staring out at the fog we'd just crawled through. Vic looked at me. "They'll take your trailer." "Yeah, probably already have." "Probably." "Gonna report it?" "I'll tell the truth. They won't believe it, but I'll tell it." "Think they'll come back? Try it again?" "They didn't get what they wanted."
We stood quiet after that, watching trucks fly by on the interstate, taillights fading into dawn. Regular traffic, oblivious, just another morning. I sat down on the step of my cab and felt the fatigue settle in. It wasn't just tired from driving, it was deeper. Like my brain finally realized how close we'd come to being ghosts, just names on manifests that never got delivered. Dean walked over, held out his hand. "I owe you," he said. "No," I told him. "You called it. I just followed through." He gave a small nod and walked back to his truck. Nobody said much after that. We all started pulling off, one by one, blending back into the interstate like nothing had happened. I was the last to leave. No trailer, no delivery, just a lot of explaining ahead. But I was upright, breathing, moving, and that was enough. It took me 2 hours to reach the way station south of Springfield. Pulled in with nothing behind me, just a bare fifth wheel and a report half written in my head. The trooper on duty gave me a long look before he even stepped out of the booth. "You lose your trailer?" he asked, half joking. "Yeah," I said, "you could say that." I gave him the short version, which still sounded like a lie. Dead-end ramp, fake detour, comms blackout, signs moved, trailer left behind to get the rest out. He wrote it down, but kept squinting like he was waiting for the punchline. When I mentioned the unmarked pickup and the footprints, he shifted his weight and scratched his cheek. "We've had a couple odd calls in that area the last few months. Missing time, GPS drift, stuff like that. But no one reported a setup like this." "Yeah, well, now you got one." I gave him coordinates off the ramp's turnoff, as close as I could recall. He said they'd send someone out later. Maybe a county crew, maybe a state guy. No promises. His voice had that tone like he knew whatever happened out there probably already got scrubbed clean. Insurance was another circus. Dispatch patched me through to corporate claims, and the woman on the line asked me 3 times if I willingly abandoned the trailer. I told her I didn't abandon it, I sacrificed it. She didn't find that funny. Told me to write it all down and wait for a call back from someone in liability. That was 4 days ago. Still nothing. My dispatcher didn't yell, which honestly was worse. Just a long silence on the line,
followed by a tired sigh, and "I'll see if I can reassign your next load." But the broker on that frozen meat, he dropped me cold. Sent an email that night saying they wouldn't be needing my services again. No explanation, no apology, just done. Like I'd brought them trouble by surviving something I wasn't supposed to notice. I didn't run the next day, or the next. Spent the time in a gravel lot outside a truck wash in Sykeston, just sitting with the truck, doing oil checks I didn't need to do, thinking too much, watching the flow of traffic.
Everybody moving like nothing ever happens out here. The others kept in touch at first. Ed called to say he made it to Tennessee fine, but his company put a hold on his route pay until they could verify the delay. Vic sent me a photo of the old ramp the next morning. Bare, clean, no signs, no board. Gone like it never happened. Said he called a buddy with DOT and they couldn't locate the site. Dean didn't say much, just a text. "If you ever need a cosign, I gotcha." That was all, but it meant something. I started changing the way I drive after that. Nothing dramatic, just small things. I don't run in fog anymore if I can help it. If I hit dense patches, I pull off and wait it out. Doesn't matter if I'm behind, doesn't matter if dispatch is breathing down my neck. If I can't see the road, I don't trust it. And I don't follow temporary signs unless I see the rig that placed them. I also stopped taking solo jobs off broker boards with no phone follow-up. If I can't get a human on the line, I don't roll. I don't care if the money's good or if it's a quick run. There's no such thing as a quick run when someone's waiting in the fog with a plan and a winch. That ramp's still in my head, the way it curved off like a limb the state forgot to cut. How easy it was to trust that lighted arrow, and how much harder it was to turn around once you realized you'd gone the wrong way. Most of all, I remember the silence, how loud it got when every tool you usually rely on just stopped working, like someone flicked a switch and pulled the world out from under you. Every time I pass that stretch of I-55 now, I look to the right. The trees are still there, but no ramp. No barricade, no sign of anything, just a row of brush and shadows that don't belong, like the whole thing was a bad mile that slipped between the others. I know better, though. That place is still there, not on a map, not in a logbook, but it's there, and someone's still watching it.